Okay, I'm gonna read a short story I wrote last night. So I gotta find it first. Okay. The Potter, Episode 1. An extraordinarily brief while ago, somewhat previous to my learning in a small arts and crafts shop, something more than what they taught me, which is the way a deep-welled man of gathered sticks to flame always learns in his walk through life's varied simplicity of change within the places where within, at least a brief while, time seemingly stands still as if to look into the mirror of itself. I lived in those mostly forgotten of days in a somewhat small two-room dwelling that was the best I could afford, living as I did on an inheritance somewhat penalized by the infrequency of visits I made to my shop-dressed father in the passage of his waning years. There had always been a great gulf between us, whether the two of us were working in the fields that flagged with the earnest breeze, the many and various barks that coined the trees near toward our distance working hands, or the two sat a mere few or 3 feet separated from one another in time we both of us dedicated to reading the endless classics. The shelves of books between the twin windows across the way from where we both silently sat afforded us. We very seldom argued, we just knew a very strange coexistence, as do fathers and sons sometimes do following the years of war, that one was too old to fight for his principles, while the other was still by 2 or 3 years too young to set aboard ship for distant lands. A homeland always changes in times of war, where within each day that passes shares the sameness with the ones precedent and antecedent to it. Even the fire and smoke that it exhales into the wanting and wearied skies seem to walk back and forth with thumb on chin, deep in thought's varied expressions. Every morning after waking, I would shuffle on down to the town's habitual gathering hole, and ordering my usual over-easy eggs and toast, I'd sometimes engage one or two of the other idlers in a vernacular consistent with the northeastern ways of aptitude toward life that no division of political opinion can erase from the archetypes of personage. Inside, though, I was dying of loneliness, a form of loneliness that led me into situations a hopeful attitude would never bring from subconscious to conscious visibility, conceived by a horrified lack of ebbing and rising troubles, wants, and daily repetitions, impossible to learn anything of life's way of death and rebirth, makes the passage of time seems almost palpable. When man and woman of a certain restlessness of nature fall into unison with this way of coined and industrial calculus, that there are no other words with which to describe it, life becomes worse than uninteresting and worse than the illegitimately objective engineers of self-pity could ever contrive it to be and from passage, as if passage was what keeps a person of humbled prides out of hands of boredom. And that's boredom is going to be a hard thing to deal with sometimes. But the next one I write, I will try to end on an uplifting note. I wrote that last night.